The outbreak began after a group of animal rights activists broke into a Cambridge research laboratory and freed a group of chimpanzees that was being studied. What the activists didn't know is that these chimpanzees were not normal. They had been displaying an abnormally high level of aggressive behavior. It turns out the chimpanzees had been suffering from an infection with a novel viral pathogen called the rage virus. After escaping, the chimpanzees attacked the laboratory staff, infecting them with the rage virus. From there, the pathogen spread rapidly across Great Britain. Like many viral pathogens, the rage virus appeared to be transmitted parenterally. This means that it was transmitted through contact with body fluids, such as blood or saliva. Even a small bite or scratch was enough for an infected person to transmit the virus to a non-infected person. However, it appears that the rage virus is not capable of vertical transmission, which is when a woman transmits an infection to her baby in utero. Infections capable of vertical transmission include syphilis, toxoplasmosis, HIV, and cytomegalovirus. These infections can lead to congenital abnormalities and crippling lifelong disabilities. What really made the rage virus absolutely terrifying was its incubation period, or should I say, the lack of one. The incubation period is the period of time between when a person is infected by a pathogen and when they start to begin showing symptoms of that infection. Most incubation periods are several days or weeks. However, they can be as long as several years. One of the viruses with the shortest incubation period is norovirus, which causes gastroenteritis, characterized by acute onset of significant vomiting and diarrhea. The incubation period of norovirus is about 24 hours, which, while very short, is still an eternity compared to the rage virus. We see situations in which a healthy person is attacked by someone infected with the rage virus, and almost instantly, within seconds, they too begin showing signs of the infection. Another characteristic of the rage virus that made it absolutely terrifying was its small inoculum size. The inoculum size is the amount of pathogen required to transmit that pathogen to a healthy host. The smaller the inoculum size, the more infectious that pathogen is. Pathogens such as HIV and hepatitis C require a decent amount of inoculum in order to be transmitted. This means that even if someone comes in contact with blood that's infected with HIV or hepatitis C, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to acquire that pathogen. After the brief incubation period, a person would then begin to display the horrifying changes of the infection. The most notable of these changes were the dramatic neurologic abnormalities the person would begin to manifest. A person would begin to display violent, aggressive behavior. They would attack any other person, sprinting and relentlessly pursuing their target. They would then kick, punch, bite, and scratch until their victim was either dead or also had been transformed. The attacks were a form of unprovoked aggression. That is, an infected person would attack anyone they saw, even if that person wasn't threatening them. This is very similar to how animals that are infected with the rabies virus behave. In fact, one of the screening questions that doctors use to determine the probability a person has been attacked by a rabid animal is if that attack was unprovoked. It's very unusual for animals to attack human beings in general because they're afraid of us. So when an animal like a raccoon or a bat attacks a human being in an aggressive and non-defensive manner, it's very unusual. This type of behavior raises the suspicion that that animal was actually infected with rabies. Unlike the significant neurologic abnormalities, there were not that many other physical changes seen in someone who had been infected with the rage virus. A person would develop bloodshot eyes that resembled subconjunctival hemorrhages. Subconjunctival hemorrhage develops when the tiny blood vessels located just beneath the top layer of the eye burst and begin to bleed. A person would also appear to have abnormal bleeding episodes. You see, on several occasions, it appears that an infected person would vomit blood. This leads me to believe that the rage virus affected a person's ability to form blood clots. This is a feature of a family of viruses called the hemorrhagic fever viruses, which include Ebola and Marburg virus. These viruses disrupt the body's ability to form blood clots. They also increase the permeability of the body's blood vessels. The combination of these two abnormalities causes an accumulation of fluid in the body's tissues. People tend to leak fluids from every orifice of their body. Fluid also tends to collect in their lungs. A person suffering from Ebola or Marburg virus will literally drown in their own body fluids. These are absolutely horrific infections. This is why I think the rage virus was actually a combination of both the rabies virus and one of the hemorrhagic fever viruses, such as Ebola or Marburg. The rapid spread of the rage virus quickly caused the downfall of British society, and the entire country was transformed into a quarantine zone. This contained the virus and prevented it from escalating into a full-scale global pandemic, which surely would have been an extinction-level event for the human race. After this quarantine was put in place and time went on, the infected contained within began to die. It's unclear if they began to die as a natural part of the rage virus itself. However, another plausible explanation is that without a food supply, people simply began to starve. Eventually, all of the infected persons contained within the quarantine zone appeared to have died. 28 weeks later, after the outbreak had begun, an attempt was made to reintroduce people into the quarantine zone and begin to cleanse the city of the grisly and violent biological extinction event that had occurred on its streets and inside its buildings. However, as is the case for a highly contagious and virulent viral pathogen, all it takes is a single case to reignite an outbreak. And unfortunately, that's exactly the fate that befell the government forces and civilians attempting to repopulate this quarantine zone. There was no cure for the rage virus. The best way to combat it was to prevent its spread to healthy hosts. Government forces were so desperate to contain the virus that any person suspected of harboring it was eliminated with extreme prejudice, such as when Doyle is incinerated by the flamethrower agents. The rage virus outbreak is still ongoing, and it's unclear how it will be resolved. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.